Welcome to Nisaba Science on Sundays. My name is Aditi, and today we are going to explore something very exciting. Today we are going to explore what is light. Is it the light coming from the sun, or maybe from bulbs, from distant stars and galaxies, or maybe from mobile phones and laptops and computers? So, what is this light made of? Is it something magical that all these things create? Or is it something else? So, before I answer this question, let us travel back to the past, to thousands of years ago, and let us see what the famous scientists and philosophers in the past thought about light. So, the ancient Greeks, thousands of years ago, thought that light is made by our eyes. So they thought that our eyes make these light rays, and when these light rays fall on objects, we can see them. Isn't that crazy? Well, it sounds crazy to us, but that is what all the ancient Greek philosophers and scientists believed, that light comes from our eyes. But then there were some others, also Greek philosophers, who thought that the sun is emitting something called light atoms. So they thought that everything in our world is made of atoms, right? So maybe light is also made of atoms. And these atoms are being emitted by the sun all the time. So the sun emits these light atoms, and that is how we see light. This is what they thought. But then in the 17th century, Isaac Newton came along. I'm sure you're all familiar with Isaac Newton. He's famous for his theory of gravity, but he also studied light. Newton said that light is not made of atoms. It is made of tiny particles called corpuscles. This is the name which Newton gave to these particles. And he said that these corpuscles are very different from atoms. They're something else. And he said that they behave like bouncing balls. They can bounce off from one place to another. And that's how light gets reflected when it bounces from one place to another. So seems pretty similar to our idea of light, right? But that's not the end of the story. A few years later, another scientist named Christian Huygens came along. He said that light is not made of particles. He didn't believe Newton. He said that it's made of waves, just like the waves in an ocean. And he said that just like waves move up and down from one place to another, light also moves in a similar way. So, what do you think? What is your favorite theory of light? Do you believe in the ancient Greeks? Or do you think that light is made of atoms or corpuscles like Newton? Or is light a wave or something else entirely? So tell me what you think. If you would like to share your answer, you can type your name in the chat box and we'll discuss all the answers together. So let's see what you think. So we have Artham who would like to share his answer with us.
Ma'am, I think it is, I believe.
So what do you think, Artham? Is light a wave
I believe a wave.
So very nice. Artham agrees with Christian Huygens and he thinks that light is a wave. Let's also hear from Pratiti.
I think that light's made out of waves and tiny particles
Okay.
because, like, I saw in the Nisaba app when I was doing it.
All right, very nice answer, Pratiti. So Pratiti thinks it's both. It's a wave and a particle. Very nice. We also have Amishi who has typed her answer, and she's also saying that it's both a wave and a particle. Let's hear from Devansh. He wants to share his answer with us.
I think that light is made out of waves because I read in a book that light has different wavelengths. So I think it is made out of waves.
So Devansh thinks light is made of waves because it has different wavelengths. Very nice reasoning, Devansh. Okay, and we have Prachi and Kavya who are saying that they agree with Newton and that light is made of particles. We also have some more people who are saying it's both. Like Pratiti said, that it's both wave plus particle. Okay, let's also hear from Mridul. Mridul has an answer. So Mridul also thinks both. Very nice. Does somebody think differently? Does somebody believe the ancient Greeks or maybe the atom theory of light? So if you think something differently other than wave or particle, go ahead and type your name. Okay, let's hear from Rudraksh. He has a different answer.
I think that light is made up of particles called photons that are masses of electromagnetic energy.
Very nice. So excellent answer, Rudraksh. So Rudraksh thinks that light is made of particles called photons. Very nice. I see Prabpreet has also typed a similar answer saying that light is made of photons. So I've received some excellent answers from all of you. So let's explore this together. So, sorry about that. So it's a very difficult question to answer, right? We have so many options in front of us, whether light is a wave or a particle or both, like some of you were saying. But back in the day, in Newton's time, most people believed Newton. He was a very famous scientist even back then, right? So everybody believed him that light is made of particles, tiny particles called corpuscles. Nobody believed Christian Huygens, who said that light is a wave. Everybody was on Newton's side. And the theory that light is a particle was winning. But then another scientist named Thomas Young came along. Thomas Young did an experiment to find out whether light is really a particle or a wave. So let me show you his experiment. So what he did was he took a sheet and made two slits in it. Slits means just like small holes. So thin, long holes he made in the sheet. He kept it in a dark area and he put a screen on one side of it. And from the other side, he shone a beam of light. So this is his experimental setup. He had a sheet in between with two slits, a screen behind it, and light shining from one end. So what kind of pattern do you think appeared on the screen? I'm going to show you three options. Look at them carefully and then think about what kind of pattern will appear. Would it be option A, which is two slits of light on the screen, similar to the two slits that were in the sheet? So that would be option A. Or would it be something like this? Maybe multiple bands of light, some dark, some slightly lighter. Maybe this is option B. You can take a look at it. Or would it be something like this? A big patch of light in the center of the screen. So that would be option C. So what do you think? What kind of pattern would appear on the screen? Option A, B, or C? So I'm going to share the question with you now as a poll, and you can select your answer. The question will appear on your screen now. So you can select option A, B, or C. Last few seconds to select your answers. All right, time's up. And let me show you the results. Let me show you what most of you thought. So look at that. Most of you think that option A is correct, that we will see two slits of light behind the two slits that were in the sheet. So let's hear from some of you. If you want to share your answer, you can type your name in the chat box. So let's hear from Narayani.
Ma'am, I would definitely not say that it is A option, because the light, whenever the light goes from any particular hole or anything we say, it travels uh, in some more places when it goes beyond that sheet. So I think it's probably B, because the light travels to many places, not only the same thing. I believe that I watched a video on light, so I saw that they showed that light travels to not only to one spot, it will go at many spots. Like if we say it in simple manner, that we put up a bulb, the bulb will not just show at one spot. The bulb will not get its light on one spot. It will give light to the whole room, right? So I think it's probably B.
Okay, very nice answer, Narayani. So Narayani thinks that it's B because light spreads around. It doesn't just go to a single place. So let's also hear some other answers. Let's hear from Vanya.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, I agree with the previous girl. My answer was the same. That light. The answer is B.
Very nice, Vanya. So Vanya and Narayani agree with each other, and they say that the answer is B. So let's hear from somebody who thinks differently. Wow, I'm getting a lot of messages. So let us hear from Mahi. Mahi, you can tell us your answer.
Ma'am, I think the answer is part A, ma'am, because light travels what the shape of the light is. Like the paper shape is on the two stills. So, ma'am, I think the answer is A because, ma'am, light travels only the shape that he has the shape, ma'am. Like on the paper, the shape is two stills. So, ma'am, the light will passes through on that two stills only, ma'am. Like ma'am, the
Narayani Didi said that the light will passes through on many directions, not only the place. So, ma'am, if the option will be B, so ma'am, option will also can on the part option C, ma'am, because in option C also there will be many light travels passes through.
Yeah, very nice answer. So you think that it will be option A because the other parts of light will get blocked, right? Only the slits, which is the area, will allow the light to pass through, and that is
Yes,
why
ma'am,
we see
because
that pattern.
yes,
Very,
ma'am.
yeah,
Ma'am, because ma'am, yes, ma'am, because the only two stilts are hold, and ma'am, other part is blocked. So,
yeah.
ma'am, only two stilts light can pass through it.
Wonderful, wonderful answer, Mahi. Okay, let me take one more answer. So let me hear from Arna.
By mistake, I selected option A. I actually meant to take option C, since light will go through the sheet and appear on the screen. So I think it's option C.
So you think it's option C. Very nice. So Arnav has a different answer than all the ones that we heard before. He thinks it's option C. So let's explore this question together. Let's see what would actually happen when we pass light through those two slits. So what Thomas Young actually saw was option B, like Narayani and Vanya were saying. What he saw were that even though there were only two slits in the screen, there were many bands appearing on the screen behind it. Many different bands. Some bands were bright, other bands were a little lighter, but there were not just two, there were many. Isn't that surprising? What could this mean? Well, if light is a particle, then option A should be correct, right? The particles of light will pass through the slits and hit the screen behind it. So all the particles which pass through the slits will form the same pattern as the two slits. And all this area will be blocked. So there will be no light on all this area of the screen. Everywhere else will be dark. If light is like a particle that is passing straight through and getting blocked in other places. But in Thomas Young's experiment, this did not happen. It means that light is not really exactly like a particle. It behaves like a wave. As the waves of light passed through the two slits, some of the waves overlapped and some of the waves spread out and canceled each other out. That's why we see so many bands of light on the screen. In the places where the waves overlapped and added up, we could see a bright spot. And in places where the waves canceled each other out, we could see the dark bands. So because light was behaving like a wave and spreading out and getting cancelled in some places and overlapping in other places, instead of just seeing two slits, we could see a pattern of many different bands on the screen. So Young's experiment showed that light actually behaves like a wave. But that's not the end of the story. It's not as simple as that. Because 100 years later, the amazing Albert Einstein came along. Now, Einstein showed that light is made up of particles called photons. And he found a very strange thing. He found that photons sometimes behave like particles and sometimes they behave like waves. So light is sometimes a particle and sometimes a wave. It's very confusing. I know, I'm confused too. But that's how light behaves. Most scientists around the world have been arguing for years and years whether light is a particle, whether light is a wave. But what Einstein found is that light is this strange thing which sometimes acts like a particle and sometimes acts like a wave. In fact, many other particles around us behave in this confusing way like light. But we'll get to that later. For now, we can think that light can behave both like a particle and a wave. Sometimes like a particle and sometimes like a wave. And it's okay if you don't understand this fully, because a lot of scientists don't understand this fully either. So we are just trying to understand it a little bit better. So don't worry if it's confusing. So let me now ask you a question. Now that we know that light is sometimes a particle and sometimes a wave, do you think human beings can see light? I'm going to share the question with you now and you can select your answer. Last few seconds, guys, you can quickly select your answer. Can humans see light? Okay, time's up. And let me show you the results. So the majority of you think that humans can see light, but some of you, a good percentage of you, think that no, humans cannot see light. So let me hear from some of you. If you want to share your answer, you can type your name in the chat box and I'll invite you to share your answer with us. So let's hear from Soham.
Hello.
Yeah, Soham.
Yeah, I think we can see light because in the environment around us, everything we see, we can see it through light. The light reflects from there and comes to our eyes. But there's a lot of things. You told that light is a wave. We always in higher classes we study that lights have photons in it. In some lower classes we study light is a rays. But in middle classes we see that light is a wave. But actually, if we some part of the light we can't see because of its frequency. So the part we see only some part of light we can see. So my answer is yes.
Very nice answer, Soham. Excellent answer. So Soham thinks yes, we can see light. Let me also hear from Sarvika.
Ma'am, I think that yes, we can see light because now also we are seeing it. I can see you only through light. If light was not there, I would not be able to see you.
Wonderful, Sarvika. So Sarvika makes an excellent point, which is that if we couldn't see light, we wouldn't be able to see anything around us, including me or you or the screen. Let me also hear from Bhanu.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think that it is right. Yes, we can see light because if ma'am, light reflects on objects so that we can see the object because it reflects from the object to our eyes, so we can see the light. And because of light, we can see that object.
Yeah, another great answer from Bhanu. So Bhanu is also saying that we can see things because light is reflected from them. That means we can see light. So one more answer. Let me hear from Devik.
So I think that you can see light because I know that we see things because light reflects of them. So if we couldn't see light, then we couldn't see anything.
Very nice, Devik. So everyone here seems to think that, yes, we can see light. But let me quickly invite Ishika because she has a slightly different answer. So let's hear from Ishika.
Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to say that human can see only visible light, but light comes in many ways like X-ray, ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, and many more.
Wonderful, Ishika. So in fact, Ishika has said the exact thing which I was going to share with you all, which is, yes, we can see some types of light. We can see the white light which comes from the sun and then splits into the different colors of the rainbow. And this light helps us see the beautiful world around us. It helps us see everything that we see. But like Ishika said, what we see is only a very tiny part of light. We cannot see everything. So over here, if you look carefully, is visible light. So this is the only type of light which we can see, which is made up more or less of the 7 colors of the rainbow. So this part is the only part that we can see. But there are so many other types of light which are invisible to us. For example, we have infrared light, which is made when things heat up. Or we have ultraviolet light, which comes from the sun. We can't see any of those forms of light. And then there are X-rays. So if you've gone to the doctor at some point to take an X-ray to see your bones, that X-rays are also a type of light, but we cannot see them with our eyes. We also have gamma rays, which is a type of radiation. You might have heard of in comic books that some monsters are created because of gamma radiation and they turn into the Hulk or Godzilla. So that is also a form of light. They might not turn things into monsters, but gamma rays are a type of light. And we also have microwaves. We all use microwaves in our kitchens to heat up food. So the microwaves which are coming out of that machine are also a type of light. And so are radio waves. Maybe we don't listen to radios these days, but radio waves are a kind of light which are used for some very interesting things, which include finding aliens. So sometimes we send radio waves out into the universe and hope that some aliens see them. So, like I said, we have so many different types of light which we cannot see. The only type of light which we humans can see is this tiny part over here called visible light. But some animals have better eyes than us. These animals can see the light which humans cannot. For example, bees. Bees can see ultraviolet light. So a flower which looks like this to us humans, very simple and yellow, looks something completely different to a bee. It looks like it has a red, bright red center and white petals outside. So this is what the flower looks like in UV light. This is what it looks like to a honeybee. Isn't that amazing? Different animals see the world very differently. And even though we cannot see the other types of light like X-rays and radio waves, we can use them to take pictures of things. They are specially useful to take pictures of space. They allow us to see things in space in much more detail. In fact, we have made telescopes which see using radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays, and so many more. And over here on the screen, the pictures that you see were taken using an X-ray telescope. So if we look at space using an X-ray, this is what some of the pictures would look like. Really cool, right? Some of you are asking some questions. We will be taking questions at the end of the session. So at the end of the session, we'll have a question answer session where you can ask any question that you have. Okay, so talking about the different types of light, let me show you something very cool. So this is a picture of the Crab Nebula. Now the Crab Nebula is something very beautiful in space, left behind by the explosion of a star. And this photo here shows us what the Crab Nebula would look like in visible light, the light that humans can see. But if we look at the same Crab Nebula using radio waves, it looks completely different, right? The shape is the same, but the colors are totally different. Also, if we see it using infrared light, it would look something like this. Or maybe with ultraviolet light, something like this. X-rays would show us something completely different, and even crazier if we try to see it using gamma rays. So now we know two things about light. We know that light can sometimes be a particle and sometimes it can be a wave, and that there can be many types of light. We can see some of them and we cannot see some of them. But how is light created? We know that the sun, the stars, light bulbs, and candles can all create light. But how? To understand how objects like the sun, the stars, and candles create light, we must first understand what these objects are made of. What is the sun, stars, candles, and bulbs made of? So what do you think? What are all the things in our universe made of? Are they made of atoms? Are they made of hydrogen? Or are they made of something called ether? So I'm going to share the question with you now, and you can select your answer. Last few seconds to select your answer. Okay, time's up. And let me see what you all said. So here are the results. The majority of you think that all objects in our universe are made of atoms, but there are some of you who have some different ideas. So let's hear from some of you. So if you would like to share your answer with us about what the universe is made of, you can type your name in the chat box. Okay, let's hear from Jishnu.
So, atoms make up everything in our universe. They are small particles that even builds us up. Everything around you right now is made up of atoms.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
That's a great answer, Jishnu. So Jishnu is telling us that everything around us, including us humans, we are all made of atoms. Wonderful. Let's also hear from let me hear now from Reshma.
My answer is atom because atom is a small particle, a group of atoms bonded together and make a molecule. I think that molecule can make an object, so I choose the answer is atom because everything objects are made up of atoms and molecules, so I choose the answer atoms.
Very nice, Reshma. So Reshma has an excellent answer as well. She said atoms make molecules and molecules make objects, so everything should be made of atoms. Let's also hear from Ananya. We have Ananya Deshmukh. Ananya, you can unmute yourself and tell us your answer.
I think it is atoms too because the first thing after the Big Bang was the atoms, and the atoms made the hydrogen. Then the hydrogen clumped together to make stars, and then helium was also made. So that's how things made the universe.
Wow, that's amazing, Ananya. So Ananya is actually telling us how our entire universe was made. And she's telling us that the first thing that appeared were atoms. And they eventually went on to make hydrogen gas. And later on, the hydrogen gas made stars. So very nice. Does somebody have a different answer? So till now, everyone thinks that our universe is made of atoms. If somebody thinks hydrogen or ether, then you can type your name in the chat box. So if you think something different from atoms. So we have Advitya.
Ma'am, I think that, ma'am, I accept that everything in the universe is made of atoms, but as this is a topic of light, I think so. Light, in the previous workshops, I have read that brightness from the sun and the stars are made of hydrogen. So I choose hydrogen.
Okay, very interesting answer, Advitya. So Advitya is making a good link between light and the stars. He's saying that all the light that is coming to Earth is coming from the sun and stars, which is made of hydrogen. So maybe hydrogen is the correct answer. So let me reveal the answer to all of you. And it is actually atoms. So all of you who said atoms were absolutely correct. All the matter in our universe, whether it is stars, whether it's mobile phones, or trees, or kittens, or us humans, is made of atoms, like so many of you told me. But have you wondered, what is this thing that we are calling an atom? What do you mean by an atom? What does it look like? Well, this is an actual photo of a hydrogen atom. So if you wanted to see an atom, this is something which you would see. You can see something very bright in the center, surrounded by something smaller all around it. But this is a photograph and it's not very clear. So let us look at an atom in a little bit more detail. So we can think of an atom as something like this. So it has a center, and in its center, there are some particles called protons and neutrons. Around the center, which is called the nucleus, there is like a cloud. So this yellowish part that you see is like a cloud, and this we call a cloud of electrons. So electrons are other tiny particles which are moving all around the center in a crazy way. So that's why we cannot say exactly where they are. They are just in a cloud all around the nucleus. So the interesting thing about an electron is So let me tell you what cool things electrons do. So like I said, we have protons, we have neutrons and electrons. And electrons do something very crazy. What they can do is they can jump. They can jump up or down as if the cloud was a staircase. So imagine that there is a center called nucleus and there is a staircase all around it. And the electron can either go up or it can jump down from the stairs. So why would an electron jump up or down? Well, if you give energy, if you give a lot of energy to the electron, it will jump up and it will go to the next step. But when it wants to come back down to its original place, it will jump down. And when it jumps down, something wonderful happens. When the electron jumps down, it emits light. That's how light is created, when electrons jump down from one stair to another. So, great. Now we know how light is created. When this electron from a higher stair will jump down to a lower stair, it will emit light. So, we can say that light is created by jumping electrons. So now we know light is made when electrons jump. So do you think that human beings emit light? Yes or no? I'll share the question with you now and you can select your answer. Last few seconds to select your answer. Okay, time's up. And let's see what you all said. Wow, look at that. Most of you think that human beings emit light, but a good number of you also think, no, we don't emit light. So let's share your answers. So if you would like to share your answer, you can go ahead and type your name in the chat box. So let me hear from Swarali.
Ma'am, I think that we are also made from atoms and every atom emits light. So we also emit light.
Wow, wonderful answer, Swarali. I couldn't have said it better myself. Very logical reasoning. If all atoms are emitting light and humans are made of atoms, so maybe humans should also emit light. So let's also hear from Sashmit.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So what's your answer, Sashmit?
Ma'am, yes, because I'm with the previous girl that all atoms emit light. So we are also atom. We are also made from atoms. So we also emit light. We can also emit light.
Wonderful, Sashmit. But are all of you thinking that when you look at other human beings, like your friends or your family, do you see them glowing or emitting light? Something to think about. So let's also hear from Manit.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Manit.
I disagree with
with the answer yes. As earlier you said that when we charge the electrons, then they jump the stairs up. Yeah. We are, ma'am, I agree that we are also made of atoms, but how can we charge our atoms? Atoms that we are made up of. So my answer is no.
Very nice answer, Manit. So Manit has an excellent reason. So he says that, okay, we are made of atoms, but how can we make our electrons jump up or down to emit light? Great answer. So let me show you what my answer is. So my answer is yes. And I agree with what some of you were saying, like Swarali, that everything is made of atoms. We are made of atoms too. So we have electrons too. When electrons in our atoms jump, they create light. But Manit might ask me, how do electrons in our body jump? Well, any way that the electrons get energy, they can jump. So we can get energy by heat or by the food that we eat or just by moving. There are so many sources of energy for us humans which can make our electrons jump up or down. And when the electrons in our body jump, they create light. Then why don't we glow? Well, it's because the light that is coming out of humans is not a type of light which we can see. Remember, there was a whole different types of light and we could only see a tiny part. So the light that is emitted by us humans cannot be seen with our eyes. It is called infrared light. If we could see this infrared light coming out of humans, we would see something like this. So humans would glow in different orangey, yellowish colors like that. So that is what it would look like if human beings, the light that was coming out of us could be seen. And another funny thing, if we saw a dog would look something like this. It's really cool, right? So human beings, dogs, and everything else that is made of atoms emits light. It can be a light which we can see, or it can be a light which we cannot see, like this infrared light. But everything made of atoms emits light. So now I have another question for you. What do you think we can use light for? Can we use light to take cool photographs? Can we use light to travel to distant stars? Or can we use light to find out what our universe is made of? So I would like to know what you think. So you can select your answer now. Last few seconds to select your answer. All right, time's up. And let me share the results. So look at that. Most of you think that we can use light to find out what our universe is made of. So let me hear from some of you. Let me hear what you think. So let me invite Shrisha.
So I think that we use light to travel to distant stars because we say how many light years.
Yeah.
So we use light as the example of how far we can go.
Very nice,
and how much
Shrisha. Yeah, so Shrisha thinks that we can use light to travel to distant stars, especially because we say that the stars are so many light years away. So maybe we can use light to travel to them. Let me also hear from Anaisha.
I think I think to see each other, if we can't see, we will sound through a box or something. So, but I did to keep cool photographs because in photographs we see each other, but I originally think it is to see each other.
Okay, very nice, Anaisha. So Anaisha has an even better answer. So Anaisha says that we use light to see each other, which is absolutely correct, Anaisha. It was because of light that we can see each other. Okay, let's also hear from Ananya Kadam. Ananya, you can unmute yourself and tell us your answer.
Miss, I am first time attending this Nisaba section, so I also don't know first answer. So I click on C. Now my answer was correct.
Okay, so it's okay even if you don't know the answer or if you have not attended previous sessions, you can select whatever answer you feel like. And Ananya selected C to find out what our universe is made of. So finally, let me hear from Piyush.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Piyush. What do you think?
Yeah.
So Piyush, what do you think we can use light for?
Ma'am, I think that we use light to travel.
Okay, wonderful. So Piyush also agrees with Shrisha.
Stars.
Yeah, so Piyush agrees with Shrisha that we can use light maybe to travel to distant stars. Okay, so let me tell you what we use light for. So in fact, all of you are correct. Light allows us to take cool photographs. A camera works because of light, because it captures the light coming from different objects. And we can also use light to propel spaceships, which can take us to different planets and stars. So we can use the energy of light to maybe travel to distant stars in the future. But most importantly, what I want to share with you is that light can tell us what our universe is made of. But you might ask how? How can light tell us what our universe is made of? Well, do you remember? Different things in our universe are made of different atoms, right? And light is created when electrons in an atom jump from one place to another. So if different things in our universe are made of different atoms and light is created when electrons jump, then different things in our universe will create different types of light. Something made of hydrogen atoms will create a different light than something made of gold atoms or iron atoms or carbon atoms or oxygen atoms. So different things will emit a different type of light. And the pattern of light emitted by some material is called a spectrum. So the light pattern emitted by something made of carbon will look like this, and oxygen will look something like this. Nitrogen will look like this. Iron might look something like this. So by looking at these different patterns of light that are coming from different materials, we can tell what that thing is made of. So if we look at the light coming from a star or a planet or a moon, we can figure out which atoms the star or planet or moon is made of. So light can help us understand what our universe is made of. Here you can see an example of this. So scientists looked in space, they looked at this nebula, and they looked at the spectrum of light coming from this nebula. And when they looked at this light, they found out that this nebula was made of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur. So by seeing the light coming from this nebula, they found out what this nebula is made of. They could also figure out which part of the nebula had which gases. So for example, they saw that sulfur, which was emitting this reddish kind of light, was mostly in the center and not so much in the sides. But other things like oxygen was in the center, of course, but also in some other areas around the nebula. So by studying the light, they could find out what this nebula is made of. And just like we can find out what a nebula is made of, we can also find out what a planet is made of. By checking the light coming from different planets, we can figure out what that planet is made of. This is what scientists do to check whether a planet has oxygen or water or not. They look at the light coming from the planet, and if the pattern of light matches the spectrum of oxygen, which we saw before, the pattern of oxygen, then we can say that the planet has oxygen. That would be very useful while searching for a planet with aliens, right? If we could figure out if the planet has oxygen or water. So light can tell us what kind of materials are on the planet. In this way, light can tell us what our entire universe is made of. To find out what something is made of, all we have to do is look at the light coming from it. So it can help us understand our entire universe. I think that's pretty amazing, don't you? Maybe you can grow up to become a scientist who looks at light coming from distant stars and planets and galaxies. Maybe you can look at the light coming from a planet and find out whether it has aliens or not. Maybe you can figure out why light sometimes acts like a particle and sometimes like a wave. There are so many questions about light which even we don't have answers to. But I'm sure that if you grow up to become a scientist, you can help us find the answers. And to help you on your journey of becoming a scientist, you can use the Nisaba app. I think some of you have already tried it, but Nisaba is a free app which you can download from the Play Store or the App Store to discover the magic of science. It is filled with many different stories and games about amazing science topics, and also different types of scientists who discovered these topics. So if you like science, you will love this app. So I'll share the links to the app with you and you can download it for free. Another thing I would like to share with you is the Nisaba Space Adventures. Now these are adventures which you can go on if you want to learn more about space. And you can access these adventures by clicking on the purple button inside the app. You can access many of the adventures for free and they're very exciting. And if you like them, you can purchase the full pack as well. So with that, we come to an end of our workshop on light. So we will have a question and answer session in the end. But before we move on to that, I would like to take some feedback from all of you. So if you can quickly answer these questions, that would be great. Okay, last few seconds to fill your feedback, and then we'll move on to the question and answer. Okay, thank you everyone so much for your feedback. I'm sharing the links to the app here, which you can download for free. And now we move on to our question and answer session. So if you have a question about light that you would like to ask, you can go ahead and type your name in the chat box and I'll try to answer your question. Okay, we have a question from Reshma.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My question is, what are the components in light? My second question is, there are many scientists, but who discovered the light?
Very nice questions, Reshma. So the components of light, so as Einstein said, light is made of these particles called photons, but it's not correct to call them particles exactly because sometimes they behave like particles and sometimes like waves. But you can say that light is made of these things called photons. So those are the components of light. And there isn't really one scientist who discovered light. So since the time of the ancient Greeks, like more than 2000 years ago, people were studying light and thinking about light. They knew that light was all around. So it was more of a gradual process that slowly they started understanding more and more about light. But there wasn't one single person who discovered light. I hope that answers your question. We also have a question from Ananya Deshmukh.
I have a question about the spectroscope. I didn't understand what it is.
Okay, very nice, Ananya. So I didn't go too much in detail about the spectrums of light, but you can think about it as a pattern which comes out when you look at something. So when you're observing a material, then the electrons, when they are jumping up and down, they are emitting some type of light. And if you map that light on a graph, then you get a pattern which we call a spectrum. So you can just think of it as the type of light that is being emitted by that atom. And that gives us a better understanding of what that material or what that atom actually is. But it's a topic which we can dive into so much detail about spectrums and different patterns. Maybe I'll do another workshop on it and you'll get to know more about spectrums. But for now, I hope that that gives you a better idea about what a spectrum
Yeah, thank you. And I have one more question.
Okay.
That does dark matter or dark energy emit it?
A very good question. As far as we know, dark matter and dark energy do not emit light. They do not interact with light, and that's why we call them dark. That's why we put the term dark in front of them, because they don't interact with light. That's why we cannot see them. They don't interact with any kind of light, not just that visible colorful light. Radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, they don't interact with anything. That's why they're called dark matter or dark energy. All right. Thank you so much, Ananya, for your great questions. Let me also hear from Narayani.